Hey, back down, Sear Performance. Uh, Started working on Chris's car now and give a little update. I did do a recording before, but again, I don't know what happened to it. It probably got lost or something. I deleted it. Who knows? But this is what we got going on. I think, I don't know what year it is. I think it's like a 94, 92, not 100%. Um, Not even sure that it's a Mustang or a Capri, but which are the same car essentially. It's got the Mustang like GT front end on it, but he's got a pretty sweet setup. He's got a 6.0. What I know of it is got a bottom end, I think rods and pistons. It may or may not have a crank. I'm not 100% positive on that. He can comment on it, but I think they're 317 heads. Believe they're 317 heads. Yep, 317 heads. Um, but he's got the Holley high ram. He's got a shear fabrication intercooler, the sandwich intercooler. It goes between the high ram, top hat, and runners. Then he had a different shop do his exhaust and his intercooler, well, his charge piping, which turned out pretty good. He's got the nice vibrant O-ring style clamps on it. This car is going to be running on the Holley Terminator X. I believe he said it's going to be running on ethanol. He's got pretty sure it's like the Motion Raceworks Holley screen mount for the small handheld dash. It's got a nice TCI Outlaw shifter. He's got a Motion Raceworks, the whole steering column with the badass steering wheel with all your buttons built into it. Motion Raceworks CO2 kit, nice Kirky seat. The car, I believe he bought the car as a roller, had the cage and everything in it. Kind of an old school drag car that somebody finally let go and he picked up. But he contacted us. He wanted to do the mini tub kit, which is the Team Z mini tub kit. He's got I believe that's the Team Z coilover kit with the Viking coilovers. That's a UPR anti-sway bar. I believe the UPR upper and lowers, which we installed. I got the one tub done, and they're not too bad to do. They're a bit of a pain in the butt to get all the brackets off the frame rail on the outside of the frame rail where they have the spring perch and a couple other brackets for some things, but I got this one tub done, and I did it a little bit different from the way it's shaped. It's originally shaped, you get four essentially. You get two side panels and two wheel tubs. They call them flats because they're flat, but you have to arch them. This panel here has whatever the crease is called. It's kind of like a sheet metal duct type crease, and then they roll the lip all the way around. So you have to take this, stick it into this, and then beat the edge of this over. It's a little bit of a pain in the butt because when you start to arch this, it tightens up this gap where that panel fits in. So you got to be real careful to make sure that that panel is sat all the way down in this lip. And kind of the way I did it was I started with the sharp end first, because you see that end over there is just a nice long radius, pretty much all the way to over here, and then you have a tighter bend. So I started at this end here, and I worked my way up the tighter bend, and I just kept tacking it all the way around on the inside until I got it all the way. Then I folded the lip over on it, And obviously I took the side panel here, which that was kind of what I was getting at. This bottom cut, it follows the frame rail real good. But I was kind of running into an issue where if you set that panel in, I should have had the tire off. If you set that panel in, it sticks off the frame rail and leaves a gap, you know, an inch and a half gap because of the pinch weld. This pinch weld here is also on the outside of the frame where they pinch weld it to the floor because it's a unibody. So if you set that panel up against this pinch weld, you know, it leaves a gap. If you cut the pinch weld off, for me, it takes away some of the integrity of this rail. And being that you're in front of the axle, that's kind of where a lot of your load and force comes in. So you want as much strength up there as possible. So I kind of did it a little bit different, and I took the side of the tub and I stood it in there, and I just took a marker on the inside and I traced that frame rail, and then I recut that bottom so it actually sits on top of the pinch weld. Like maybe crawl under there and we can kind of look at it. So yeah, you could see, kind of. Yeah, you can see where it sits on top of the pinch weld all the way around, to about just above the center of the axle, and then toward the back I cut the pinch weld off. So now that panel's not hanging down toward your link bar. If I had cut this pinch weld off and pushed this panel all the way to the frame rail, this front end was too short to actually meet up to the outer wheel well. There was like a literally an inch gap, just a little less than an inch, maybe 3/4 of an inch gap. So, you know, you would have had to put in a filler piece out here, which, you know, I didn't want to do. I didn't want to do like a small filler, which would have ended up being, you know, quarter of the way, third of the way up. So I didn't want to do that. So I followed where their seam is for the outer to the inner wheel well on the factory. And anybody that's doing this undercoating is a nightmare. So the easiest way to do it is to get your cut out of the car, get the inner tub all cut out of the car, and literally take a blowtorch, like a small, like I have a map gas torch somewhere. I have a, you know, a handheld small map gas torch, and just heat, you know, a 4 or 5 inch section of the undercoating, and then you can take a screwdriver. I used a gasket scraper and literally just scraped all the undercoating all the way around so that I can weld that, what they call the flat, but ends up being kind of your top of your tub. I welded it all the way around on the outside to the outside wheel well, and then I went inside and I welded the entire, you can kind of see it, it's hard to see, yep, there it is, and I welded the entire wheel tub back into the floor, so that wheel tub is completely sealed. It's not just tacked in a bunch of spots, a million spots. And it turned out pretty good, and it kind of, you know, it kind of follows the frame rail, which that's a pain in the butt to do. And then you have to trim the top from roughly half, a little shorter than halfway. You just have to trim along this edge, this top tub. You have to trim. It's back here. It's maybe an inch and a half at most that you have to trim off of it, and that's just because where it curves in right here to follow the frame rail. I kind of think it's a better look, and then I'll take 16 gauge or 18 gauge, it'll probably be 18 gauge flat tin, and I'll put his floor back in. This section of the floor normally wouldn't get cut out, but it had a lot of rust and rot on it. So I ended up just cutting this out, and I can, square it off here, and I'll flatten that out, and then I'll just follow that new floor along that wheel tub. I'll probably cut this back a little bit more and take it off from the pinch weld just a little bit more to get rid of this rust and to be able to kind of have a square edge, a little bit nicer. You can see there's a little more rotted section right there, but that'll be after everything else is done, which pretty much everything else is done. I got the shocks are in, the shock kit is in, the coilover kit, that's what it's called. I got the sway bar in, the uppers and lowers are in, nothing's adjusted at all. And then he also bought the Motion Raceworks door car kit, I believe is what they call it. So it comes with like a huge roll of line, comes with five braided lines, tons of fittings, comes with pretty much everything to put it in what would be a bracket car, or a race car, or, essentially you probably could use it on the street, but it comes with everything. Comes with the line lock solenoid, which I mounted over here on the frame rail. Actually, I still have to mount it, but it sits down here on the inner fender well, I should say, kind of tucked down in a space that's really not going to be used for anything, so we might as well put it in there, hide it kind of, but it's accessible. And then I'll take the wiring, I'll take and put a plug on it for him so that you can literally just unplug it there. He bought the Motion Raceworks like manual master cylinder, the block off plate for the power booster, proportioning valve. So I started on that kind of first. In between projects I kind of jumped over and would do a couple brake lines here and there. So I got the front is all done from the master to the line lock to the proportioning valve. The rear is done from the master to the proportioning valve, out of the proportioning valve down here, and it runs, oops, oh, put that back on, runs all the way along, kick some stuff out of the way. Ugh. Runs all the way along the frame rail, comes down from up in there. I don't know if you can see it. I can't see it. Yeah, you can kind of see it. Comes down, runs along, and then I used the nice stainless rubber insulated P-clamps, like every, I don't know, 8 or 10 inches. Ran it all the way along the frame rail. So again, the line is accessible, but it's tucked up out of the way. And then it runs up. More P-clamps, runs up, and then it runs over there just above the housing. It's not mounted yet, but you can kind of see where the end fitting is with the flare for the rubber line, or well, it would be a rubber line, but it's a braided line that comes down to the housing piece. Crawl back out. And now you give you that in the kit as well, is that brass kind of a junction block. It's sitting sideways right now, but that front fitting is for the braided line to come off of the hard line to the rear end, and then you build your two hard lines, which your driver's side will be a small piece, because the braided line comes off the caliper and then goes up to the rear end housing, and they include the little tabs. Let's see. Yep, it's this kit here. So they include all these tabs. They have a couple of flat tabs here, which are the ones that I have on the car. Then they have a couple of these bent 90 tabs with some bolt holes in, which I'm using one of these for the hard line from the front to the back, and then the two flats I'm using for the rear end housing, where the hard line will end and it'll go to braided. Um, so yeah, but so far, everything I've been doing um, with this kit is super nice, and it's fairly straightforward and easy to install. The wheel tubs they're a little bit of a struggle um, to kind of get the fit good, but it's it's something that if you just take your time and make your cuts right. And of course, my phone is ringing now. Um, they'll go in nice. Um, Definitely, just a small MIG welder, and you can knock them out. You don't have to fully weld along the seams. You can do, a gazillion tacks if you want, and then kind of use a good, like a 3M product or something, seam sealer, and follow all those joints around. That wouldn't be too bad. What else do we have left? As far as what's left right now are those two bars there, which I believe are UPR. They're 8.8 axle braces. These are pretty neat. Nice chunk of aluminum, and they have a couple weld-on tabs that go to your frame rail, and then this heim joint bolts directly onto the rear end, which there's a factory hole down right. Kind of see it right there next to the pinion flange. Comes off the housing somewhere. It's right there. See it? It's right there. But it has a hole already in the housing. So you put that bolt in, run this over to the frame rail, and you weld this in to the frame rail. And that gives some extra side support to the rear end, which is pretty cool. But that's pretty much what I have left for now. And then I think I believe he's got some wiring left for the Terminator. Looks like he's got a few. He's just got to wire up the Terminator, shifter cable. Definitely patch that hole in the floor where the factory shifter was, which I could do with the tin that's left over from the rear. That's about it I could think of on this one, but yeah, I mean this was definitely a sweet hot rod twin turbo. I don't know if I said that. Not sure on the size of the turbos, but it should definitely be a ripper. He's got all the ICT brackets, alternator bracket, tensioner, all nice pieces. I believe they're Flowtech headers, the forward-facing headers, which fit really pretty nice and kind of put the turbos in a good placement just off to the sides of the radiator, which is pretty nice. I think he was going to be stopping in. He has a hood for the car. I don't know how much hood would be left on this car. But it would definitely be something that he's looking to do. He's going to cut the exhaust down, I believe, to kind of be flush with the hood, and then have trim rings on the hood. So that'll make it a little bit easier to fit. But there's not going to be a lot of hood left, but it'll definitely look cool. And this is a track car for him. So yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. Everything else that's going on, we're still working on Zach's Mustang little by little. We're getting that. The 33 went out, but has to come back. Anybody that ever looks into an IFS kit, independent front suspension or rear suspension, whichever one, anybody that looks into that and is thinking about doing that kit on an older car or any car for that matter, what I would recommend, not buying a Helix kit. It's probably as good as the worst China kit out there. Pretty much every box, and it's in one of the other videos with the 33. Every box was pretty much mangled when they shipped it. There was no packing around anything. They shipped not what I had asked for, which they verified in a phone call, because they record all your phone calls. And when you call back and say, hey, you sent something that is opposite of what I asked for, they basically tell you you're a liar, and that they'll review the phone call. And when they reviewed the phone call and found out I wasn't a liar, and this is in regards to the manual rack that they sent, which I specifically over the phone told them it had to be a power rack. So when the kit arrived and it was a manual rack, I originally had called and said, you know, you're supposed to send a power rack. Blah, blah, blah. Long story short, don't use Helix. We have a lot of issues with the car right now. It's drivable, but it's not safe. So anybody, and I'll point this out in every video. If anybody has any questions, please comment about it, and I'll go into grave detail about it, especially the conversations with their tech support, which doesn't work for them but works for them, but owns his own company, and you have to get parts through him, and I don't know, it's a weird situation. I guess they can't get any parts from China right now, so the parts that we're missing out of the kit we can't get. It's just a nightmare. Don't do it. I did their corner killer kit, which looks like a nice kit, and you'll see a couple other videos. The cross member comes powder coated, which is stupid because you have to grind it all off to weld it in, and then you have a cream colored cross member for a black frame. 9 out of 10 frames are black, so who the hell wants a cream colored cross member? But anyways, this isn't about that car. I'll make another video about that car. This is about Chris's car. Chris's car is cool. He's got all strange brakes too. I don't know if I pointed that out. Strange brakes all the way around. I believe they're strange. I don't know, they say aerospace components. So yeah, they're cool. Whatever. Anyways, yeah, enough ranting and rambling and blah blah blah. But this is gonna be a cool car. We're almost done with the major work. This is kind of your big surgery on anything you do with like a Foxbody, making it for, you know, drag car. Your wheel tubs, your coilovers, anti-roll bar, all that stuff is sort of your main, what I would say, main surgery on the car. But it turned out good, so we'll get the other tub done in the next couple of days. We'll have that all done, and then we'll get everything painted for underneath, and then we'll put the floor in. We'll paint the floor and get rocking and rolling on getting it wired, and we got to get them a set of injectors. It should be in stock this week. And yes, we're going with Snake Eater Performance, which I got for the other car. I got a set of his LS3 style 1500 with the EV6 plug on it. And Brad is super awesome. The guy is super responsive whenever you have a question or anything like that. But know what you need. Not that he doesn't know, but you need to know what you need when you order parts. And that's kind of a common sense type of thing. I did order the LS3, and I measured to the rail. It's a Holley high ram, so I put the rail on the lower setting, and I measured, and off me measuring, it looked like his LS3 injector would work O-ring to O-ring. Maybe I measured wrong. Well, no, I measured wrong. So they're a little short. Now, what I think you could get away with is that LS3 injector with a cap, like a hat on it, spacer. and put the rail on the upper setting. That might work. That's something I'm actually going to ask him about, being that I bought the set of injectors for the other car. It makes no sense to return them and, have him send out another, or pay for the shipping back, pay for shipping back and forth. Doesn't make any sense. But what I did yesterday was, because Chris needs a set of injectors, I took a set of Deka 80s that I have, that are no good anymore, and I stuck them in the rail, and on the higher bolt setting, the Deka style rail fits perfect. It's nice and tight down in there. The rail, you squish the rail all the way down and the bolts line up perfect. So we're going to order a set of the Deka style 1500s for this car, and those should be in, probably those will be in, if we order them this week, they should be in the end of next week. And then he'll have his injectors, and then we just got to finish up. He's got to finish up, like, get his fuel pump. Like, he has one, but I don't know. He's got to finish up the fuel system, which we're going to mount. That's his fuel cell right there. It's like a little 10-gallon fuel cell. They had it mounted in the spare tire, which is in that bin right there. They had it kind of mounted in there, and I didn't like it. And he knows I didn't like it, so I cut his spare tire out. Sorry, Chris. But it's going to be better. So my plan is to take, most likely what I'm going to do for the fuel cell to make it have its own support is I'll take some like 1-inch square tube and kind of cage in the fuel cell. And I might move it one side or the other to kind of offset him. He has an ice tank that has to go in here. He's got a bunch of parts, which, Chris, if you're watching, wasn't nice to just drop parts off, although they're really nice parts. But it's all good. But he has a bunch of really nice parts. He's got the, where is it? It's actually over here. The UPR billet rear end cover, to go on the 8.8. Then he's got the ice tank. And he's got some other stuff too. There's a few more parts over there, but all really nice parts. So, but what I'm thinking, oh, transcooler, that's the other one too. What I'm thinking is kind of do some 1-inch square tube coming across the frame rail, and do a cage. There'd be two tubes running across, 2 tubes kind of on the bottom, tied together, and then supports right under the fuel cell. This way the fuel cell bolts directly into that 1-inch square tube and sits directly on top of those 2 runs, front to back. And like I said, I may move them over to one side, and then do his ice cooler box kind of directly center in the back, and maybe offset the fuel cell. He's got a battery that's got to go in here. So there's a few things to work out, whatever. Long story short, I'll cut the video off here, but I will try and not delete any videos or screw up recording them and think I'm recording when I'm not recording or something like that. But I'll keep making videos on this car because this car's cool. And all the cars we do are cool in their own way. But I'm kind of growing on this car. He may never get it back. How about that? But no, this is a cool project. So we'll keep you posted. Make another video or 2 or 3 or 10. But do me a favor, like, subscribe, leave a comment. And that's it for today.